Good evening. I thought you were doing everything because you always get me to
No.
do that, and then it's quite a small group, so it would be nice if we had it a bit more interactive. Because I don't know, Kelly was on last week, and Angie, were you with us last week?
Yeah, Angie was here this week.
It's quite a big group, wasn't it?
It was big at that. Yeah.
But it was more of a talk rather than a discussion. So we'd love it if people have questions or anything that's come up for them over the last week or two, or since they've seen us. Yeah, just open it up to a bit more of a discussion than a talk. I'm sure we'll find things to say if people haven't got anything.
I'm just going to grab a pen and paper. You can unmute me.
Yeah, if no one volunteers, I'll just pick on someone and ask them. We've actually just rushed back in. It's my cousin's husband's 40th on Saturday, and I decided it'd be a good idea to get pictures of his children in the Bluebell Woods, but the only time they could do was tonight. And yes, we did that from 5 till 6:15, came back 8:00, and then we've got groups, so we both seem a bit flustered. But it's cool because it's something I've done with my nieces every year pretty much since they were born. So there's like when they get older, I want to be able to do like a montage of all the years in the Bluebells, and like the different times where we've stressed out wanting them to be dressed in matching or nice dresses and things. But now when you look back, the ones that stand out are when they would only wear a onesie. So you've got them in like a ridiculous pink fluffy onesie in the middle of the Bluebells, or when they thought it was cool to like cut their own fringes and things like that. And at the time you thought you wanted the photos to be perfect, but I think it's in looking back, it's capturing their character at that time in that moment and not needing it to be like a photo shoot. It's been nice. I was saying we're a bit flustered.
Hi, Diane, love. You all right? Cool. Can't hear a word you're saying, but I can lip read now. Zoom has created good lip readers, I feel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm all right. You?
Yeah. Good, thanks.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't think Diane's quite close to Paul and Claire, isn't she? Are you over on the northeast?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm near the northeast coast, Albury, Hornsea, Widensea, then going up Bridlington, Scarborough, Whitby.
Friday.
So, yeah, that's where I am.
You're at South Shields, is it? No, you darling. No, it was Durham, isn't it? No, what I'm talking. Sunderland.
No.
I know those two are. Laddie, big angry looking fella in a red t-shirt.
Oh, I ain't got him.
You haven't got him?
Oh, I've got him now, yeah.
Oh, he's lovely.
These guys aren't too far from you.
Yeah. Them two are local to you. And then directly across the country from you, we've got Colin and Catherine. And then directly south of you in the southern hemisphere, we've got Leanne. And directly south of you, but not quite as far as Leanne, South Africa, we've got Kelly in Essex.
Suffolk. No, she's Suffolk.
Suffolk. So that's where you want to live, isn't it?
Yeah.
And whereabouts do you live at? Is it St Albans?
That's northeast as well, isn't it?
Stockton-on-Tees. I'm in the northeast.
Yes, good representation of the north. That's nice. Hey. North holding it. Cool. So I think Jen, like Jen said, if anybody's got anything they want to talk about, anything they want to share, anything they've seen, anything they've got as a question, we're just going to open it up like that. And if not, we'll find something to talk about. Yeah, we'd like this to be interactive. Claire.
Hi, I've got a question. You know, when we talk about the feeling and having the feeling, my question is, how do I know that the feeling is wisdom and not my fear? Is that the cat? Can you hear that? Right, I'll give you an example. So yesterday, I had this feeling, but I don't know if it was wisdom or fear. So I had this feeling with Paul, back off from him, back off, it's too much. And I don't know if that's wisdom or just fearful thinking? And I would really like to hear your thoughts on that one.
Cool question.
It is a cool question. The amount of times we've heard that question. This is why we don't use the word wisdom, personally. You'd never really hear us use the word wisdom because I feel it brings a lot of confusion into a conversation that is really quite simple. I think it's a word that's been jumped all over. Personally, I think it's a word that's been jumped all over. And it's not that. No, Jen, am I taking away what you want to say? Do you want to say something?
I'll say something after you. It's fine.
I've had the same battle in my own head because I kept on hearing people talk about wisdom. Oh, follow your wisdom, follow your wisdom. So what's your wisdom? Oh, wisdom's a deep feeling state. The deep feeling, the gut feelings, their wisdom. Yeah, I was all down with that until my gut feeling was that Jenny and I wouldn't be together. And I'd lost a seriously good friend, 2 seriously good friends. But it didn't turn out that way. But that was my deep feeling, my deep, deep gut feeling. Even that was coming from what I was thinking. Even that was a reflection of thought. So to me, the reason why I personally talk about the intelligence behind nature, because that's personally what I describe as wisdom. If we're going to talk about wisdom, wisdom is, as Sid Banks would say, wisdom is the power of thought before it's contaminated by the human mind. So for me, getting a glimpse of wisdom is when an individual is falling into a space beyond the conceptual mind. Now, when that happens, you know about it. You absolutely know about it. There is no questions about it. You would not question it. And it is absolute love. It's just pure love. Now, that wisdom has the ability, that pure love has the ability to cleanse a soul, to cleanse an ego, to kill karma dead, if you want to talk about karma. Has the ability to change an individual's life in a moment, but it's nothing that you do with your intellect.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. Wisdom's not a personal thing. It's the intelligence between a thorn and a nervous system. It's the intelligence between the chlorophyll and the sun. It's the intelligence that builds a body and then inhabits it and lives its life through it. So if anybody is in a feeling state and questioning, is this wisdom, is that wisdom, that's pure ego.
I think also it's something often you can only, it's in hindsight, we will say whether we were following wisdom or not. And it's often only with the being able to look back. And I think the example, I'm not sure if Mel maybe's heard this story before. I don't really tell it very often. I think maybe I told it in one of the retreats. But we had an experience a couple of years ago where it felt like suddenly I was getting kind of guided, and it felt very like synchronicities happening, and all these random events conspired to get me to go to this appointment to sort my back out. And it felt like all of the synchronicities just felt like, and it felt like I was following something deep inside me. Like this is all
like
working out.
Stars have aligned.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing. And then it ended up being like the first appointment. I remember coming back saying, it's mad as a box of frogs, but he seems to know what he's doing, and it's helped my back. And then on the second appointment, he ended up sexually assaulting me. And like my worst thing was having to tell you, because I was thinking he's going to hit the roof. So I hid all the car keys, told you, let you hit the roof and calm down. And then he ended up going to prison for
16.
He got 16 months served half. But the reason his sentence was so harsh is because he had actually had a previous. He'd only been off the sex offender list for a year for a previous on a minor.
It wasn't a year. I think it was a couple of weeks or a couple of months.
I can't remember.
Like
but it was, so for probably the couple of weeks after it happened, I really questioned, but I thought I was following wisdom. I thought it all felt like it fell into place, and I really lost my bearings. I was so grateful for the understanding, because it's almost like I just let myself go up and down and feel at sea. And what sort of seemed to come to me, we then did an event with Dickon about 3 or 4 weeks after it actually happened. We had this event, and I remember sharing on maybe day 2 or day 3 of the event that I suddenly saw that it was only ever when we look back in hindsight that we say whether or not it was wisdom. And it's like, well, it didn't seem to work out very well, but through that experience, I learned so much about myself and my ego, and how I don't like to upset people. And I think I've got it wrong, and I've got braver and much more vocal and forthcoming with my opinion since that event. Like, it's completely changed me. I've realized how much I'm kind of being a people pleaser, and I don't want to cause a fuss. So I notice things about my own ego, and within 24 hours of it happening, I went from being so upset and angry and to feeling so much compassion for that man. 'Cause I thought, you've just made a massive mistake. He's a 79-year-old man. His family had to find out about it, and I thought, you've made a massive mistake. And I found compassion for him. And it was interesting because we were doing the event with Dickon. I know Dickon loves to talk about wisdom, and that's just what inspires him, and it comes through him, and that's why he speaks about it. But I saw how he shares wisdom in a different way to I see it. Like, it is more that there's a deeper intelligence to life. And it's that phrase that Lisa often says is, I trust my life. Life will unfold, and I don't have to try and figure it out. In the same way you watch a plant kind of move around in the day following the sun, there is that deeper intelligence to us that isn't personal. That if we start getting in our head trying to figure out, is it wisdom, isn't it wisdom? Or another word people use is intuition. Is this intuition or not intuition? I feel like we get lost in the detail again. And I think what Sid's message was kind of pointing to is, like, when we fall out of our head, we get lived. When we start analysing everything and freaking out, and it feels hard, but there's a deeper intelligence that lives us. And I think we start to have trust and faith in that. We know that. And then we could look back, and it's a bit like, well, obviously I wasn't following my wisdom because that awful thing then happened. But then I'm like, yeah, but I learned so much from it. And actually now he's on an offenders list for 10 years. He's still on probation. He has to go and check in, and he's not allowed to now practice. So I may have prevented many other people going through that experience, because my niece had seen him with my sister there. And that was actually the thing that upset me the most. And she would have continued to go to appointments. And I'm guessing my sister would have always been there, but I don't know if my sister had popped to. So it's almost like I feel like I've prevented further harm. And it felt like it happened to somebody who happens to be surrounded by a loving, supportive family. So with some understanding about life. So I felt like if it happened to me and now I've maybe prevented it, maybe it was a good thing that happened. So you can see however you interpret it, it's like, what, did I follow wisdom or didn't I? But you see that as life unfolds, we can just learn about our own mind. And it sounds like, Claire, like yesterday, if you're in fear or not knowing whether it's fear or not knowing whether it's wisdom, it is telling you about your own mind. Like, you're kind of up here trying to figure it all out. And like, I've had deep feelings before about something, and then it's turned out the complete opposite. I know that when we start trying to figure it out in terms of the details, that's where we trip up.
That's where you know it's not wisdom, in the way I personally see it.
Yeah.
The moment you go, is this wisdom or is this not wisdom? You're instantly into opinion. Wisdom has zero opinion. Wisdom doesn't have an opinion. Wisdom is the life force of existence. It's the all-knowing. It's what everybody is. I personally am not a fan of people talking about wisdom, because I feel like it divides thought into numerous pieces. Thought is a singular power. It's all thought. You could say all life is wisdom. Everything's made of wisdom. It's just another word to describe thought. It's another word to describe consciousness. It's another word to describe mind. It's another word to describe God. It's another word to describe intelligence, but not your intelligence or my intelligence. Wisdom is the space from which all new things come, where everything is born. So the moment we go, is this wisdom or is that not wisdom? Am I following my wisdom? I can absolutely tell you we're in ego, because it's a conflict. There is no conflict in wisdom. Wisdom's too wise to have conflict because it's a singular thing. There's nothing for it to go up against. Sid said, wisdom, mind, conscious, not thought, they're all just different words to describe the same thing. Thought, the power. Wisdom is the power of thought. Wisdom is the intelligence behind all things. What's guiding you is whatever you think. Whatever you draw forth from the power of thought. Whatever you manifest within your own mind from the power of wisdom, that will be your reality. And it will appear real. Even the question, is this wisdom or not? That is part of the illusion.
Oh, you just blow my mind now. I'm like, oh, you put a spanner in the works there, because so many of these conversations are about wisdom and having that. Because one of my questions as well was in my head at the moment is this good feeling coming from thought, good feeling thoughts, or that, that good feeling, that beautiful feeling that everyone talks about, which I was equating to when you're living with the flow of life, you just are in this good feeling. And then I was thinking, well, what's the difference between that and a good feeling generated by thought? Because if thoughts create feelings, then do you see where I'm going with that one? But so how do you two describe what everybody sorry, what?
You're describing that thought creates feeling, but then there's wisdom.
Yeah.
Like you have to put, like one of the things that I know changed for me when Keith and Valda started talking about the 3 principles as a paradigm, that was when they realized how confused people were getting by this talking about intuition and the feeling and wisdom all the time. Because people started getting really heady. Like the deep feeling that Sid spoke of is something you just fall in and you can't manufacture. You just find yourself in this feeling. And it is, people describe it as almost in a neutral way because there's no judgment.
It's pure love.
Yeah, there's no separation. But if we have this idea that, well, I know thought creates feeling, but then there's wisdom, we've completely split thought. And Sid wanted to put thought back together. Like any experience you live is coming from thought in the moment within your mind. Like it's never going to be something else. Wisdom isn't something separate, but we do have intuitive thought. We all have all kinds of thought. It's like we don't have to figure it out. It's almost like putting it back together is the power of thought. That's what you're living in. You're living in the experience of your mind. Like whatever your experience, it's about looking within and knowing it is thought rather than looking out and pinning it on something in the world, which is what we normally do. So it's information about mind and thought rather than the world or what you should do. And I think so often what happens is we get kind of caught up and think we're trying to figure everything out. And then we drop into this space and we're like, oh, there isn't any questions there. There's no figuring out to do in this place. I'm lived and it's like a breath of fresh air. And you're just like, wow, life's easy. And then we get caught up in our head again and we start future thinking. We start thinking about the past. We start viewing life through our own beliefs and ideas. And it is about what the principles tries to point towards is what's before the human mind, what creates the human mind, but what's before. That's the limitless space. That's what we get to touch upon from time to time. But as soon as we're in our head, we know, like I loved it when Roger used to teach. As soon as the room got heady or there was loads of questions and debates going on, he'd just stop it and say, let's just have a break. Because he kind of knew that when people would go off and have a cup of tea, and questions often then settle. Because the answer that really you're looking for will come to you via thought in your mind. Like you'll start to get, I remember saying to Keith once, it feels like I'm starting to get a sense of when I'm really caught up and something feels urgent or true, or the difference between that and when I'm actually settled, and you get a feel for your own mind. I can't tell you. Like if you say, how do we do it? It's like I'm starting to get a feel from my own mind. And normally if I'm urgent or I'm trying to figure stuff out, I'm aware that I'm in ego. It doesn't mean it vanishes, but it just means if I can help it, I won't make a decision from this space. I won't have that conversation right now. And like there's been so many times that's been helpful for us, because I will just create a little fantasy in my mind about something and it looks totally true and real and you're going to get it in the neck, but I'm like, might just wait. I might just give myself a little bit of breathing space around this. And like I think Kelly spoke about it once. She goes, it's like I'm a schizophrenic. Like one day it's like this, and the next day I think about it completely differently. But you said you're starting to find a balance with that. And I think that's the thing. It's so unique to you. You'll start getting a feel for it. No one else can tell you. That you'll start to learn from your own experience. Like, wow, yesterday I was in this dilemma, like, is it this or is it that? And is it fear or is it wisdom or is it, what is it? And then you've settled down and you've obviously started to feel different. And life looks different. So it's like you've now learned from your own experience rather than someone else trying to tell you, you've got that learning. So you will get a feel for your own mind because you're built for it. You're built from it.
There's nothing we can give you. We can only give you things to think about. That's it. We can only question your logic. You see, we get really attached to words. I think this is another thing. We get really attached to words. Wisdom. Wisdom is a noise. It's a word. It's a descriptive word, which means many things to many different people. I'm only giving you how I see wisdom and the reason why I don't use it so much. I don't really use the word. It's not my go-to word for anything really, because I feel like it brings into a conversation a confusion that really doesn't need to be brought in, and it's just a word. I would love it if people could really get a sense of wisdom, because really that's what they're looking for. But you won't find it in judgment. You won't find it in questions. It will find you. And when it finds you, you will absolutely know about it. There'll be no questions to ask. But then there'll be every question under the sun that follows it. And there'll be knowledge that is born within your being that you didn't know. It will just reorientate your mind. Because the mind's a very progressive thing. It's always searching, and it's always searching for love. It's always searching for fulfillment and contentment and love. That's why you're stroking your dog. That's why you sat there with Big Mac there. And it's why we're all on this call. Because every single one of us is on a search for love, peace and contentment. And then we live this life, this dualistic life, this life of over here and over there and up and down and northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, time, biases, judgments, beliefs, conditioning. And we look through all this stuff to try and find ourselves, try and figure out who we are. This is what the mind does. We set the fucking mind off on the job of trying to find ourselves. We set our little minds off, our intellect off on this duty to try and find ourselves and find out what's true. and it will never find it. It will never, ever, 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 ever find it. Because it's a shadow. Because it's a consequence. Because it's not a true reality. Wisdom is the true reality. It's not what you see out of your eyes the moment we say something or we judge something and give something a name. It's all things. It's all things without a judgment. It's all things without any bias except towards love, unification, and singleness. This is the nature of all things. That's the nature of wisdom. People will find it. It will find them when that individual is ready, and every individual is ready at different times. And the moment wisdom finds them, that's not the end, that's not the goal, that's just a new beginning. It's the nature of experience, which is the nature of reality, which is the nature of God. It's all the same thing. To wisdom, war and peace are just the same. They're both beautiful. That makes no sense to our intellect. What you're saying, God thinks that war's beautiful. It's an experience. It brought it to life, ultimately. And it experienced it. And it learned. And this is why, if you really look at life, we're constantly learning. This is not a mistake that we are always constantly learning. It's an absolutely specific quality of nature. Everything can improve. Everything can take a step closer towards love. Because really, when we talk about improvement of the world, then we're not talking about unification and love. Really, if we look at it, how do we improve the environment? Well, first of all, we must learn to love the environment. It's logic. How do you improve a relationship? Well, first of all, we must learn to love each other deeper. How do you improve race relations? Well, the races must learn to love one another. It's the only way it'll improve. So how does nature go about creating evolution? What is evolution? It's always a step towards love. Unification. Perfection. If something's not working, the love behind life sees to it that it adapts and it stands a chance to continue to live. Because it's loving. And it favours the whole and it favours the individual all at the same time. That's why it gives a rabbit fast as fuck legs and the ability to hide down a little burrow, and it gives a fox fast as fuck legs and the ability to chase a rabbit. But it makes more rabbits than what it does foxes. You've seen a fox somewhere. You see, it favours the whole and it favours the individual. Everybody's given a fighting chance. Many people are too stubborn to let go of what they think they know. Because they think it keeps them safe. They don't realise it's their prison. The suit of armour that they put on at the age of 12 or 13 or 7 or 30, whatever age, the thing that they believe keeps them safe is ultimately the stuffy fucking tin can that they're living out of. What they think keeps them safe keeps them trapped. If somebody lets go of their stuffy beliefs, because that's all they are, they're just stale thoughts now, they'll find freedom. First of all, they have to be prepared for that. They have to be prepared to let go of things, forgive and whatnot. Because there's never, ever, ever, ever any wisdom in a grudge. A grudge is the absolute opposite of wisdom. We can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Kel, you put your hand up, love.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I've found that I've been dropping into that nice space, and I think, oh, I'm never going to go into that other energy again. But it happens, and it happened this weekend. And there's just a difference. It feels different in my body. Like Jen said about that sort of urgency. This time I went into this thing, and I expect it's going to happen to me lots of times. And I did exactly the same question in my head that Claire just asked, basically. Is this my own? But I was thinking about my gut instinct, my intuition. But this time I didn't. I mean, there's been other times where I haven't spoken out when I'm in that state of mind. But this time I just accepted the energy of it. And I know that it wasn't intuition or gut instinct because of the way it feels. And I had the thoughts going around, but I didn't pay any attention. That doesn't mean they didn't make me feel awful, because I felt awful. And I knew after that I wasn't in my intuition, because it just feels so different. And I was exhausted. Like I was just so, and I'm trying to answer loads of questions. There's all these questions like that. But I wasn't feeling great. It wasn't like I'm saying, oh, I just experienced the feelings and, oh, I felt great. No, I didn't. I felt like shit. And I felt like shit for about 4 days. And there was a big incident, and I just was trying to let myself off, because this incident was overwhelming my ego. I knew I was in my ego, because there wasn't that lovely, that nice feeling that you can have. It was urgent and agitated, and I was really tired. And someone said to me, oh, you seem really chilled out today. This was after I'd had a couple of days of feeling quite bad. And I was like, no, I'm fucking knackered. I've just exhausted myself. So now, after I've come out of it, like you said earlier about hindsight, I'm a day out of it now. My energy today is totally different. Like my energy from Sunday afternoon until yesterday was fractious. And I'm thinking to myself, is this gut instinct? But the way the questions are coming up, the thinking's coming up, just feels just so completely different than being in that sort of calm space, or calm space. I don't know. It just feels so different. There's a different tone to it. And yeah, it's a interesting question, that kind of intuition thing, because we can sort of trip ourselves up with that really easily. And I think that I was thinking, oh, and then I start thinking about loads of other stuff. And I think, oh, well, I must deal with that. And I must deal with that. And it always feels like there's stuff to deal with. And when I'm in a good place, I'm just letting it happen and it's all fine. But when I'm not, I'm thinking, oh, I should really question that relationship. I should really question how I spoke about that. I should really question, oh, I must solve things. I must fix things. I think when you're in the solving, fixing sort of place, that's not a calm, wise space. I think that it's the energy, isn't it? Somehow that you feel, that you let out, or you feel within yourself. It just feels different. But that keeps happening over and over again. But I keep having this benefit of hindsight after it's happened. I don't know if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah, it's just, but it's just, I wouldn't say it's necessarily getting easier. I just know that there's a better place to be. And I recognise that I'm in that other place. And then when I start going, again, like you said, Dave, is this intuition? Is this wisdom? It's such an easy question to keep falling into, isn't it?
Yeah. You'll drive yourself mad with that one, because like Jen says, it's generally a hindsight thing that we judge it by. Oh, it worked out well. Oh, I must have been in my wisdom. Oh, it worked out well. You know, just a quick experiment. I'm going to say the word God, and I want you to give me a number between 10 and 1. Now, I've done this before in a community group, and it was really interesting. So I'm going to say the same word, God, and I want a number between 10 and 1, how much people like that word. 10 being absolute best word in the world, 1 being, no, don't use that word. So I'll start with you, Kel. Word God.
10. And I'm not religious.
Okay. Angie,
4.
Four, cool. Colin,
Yeah, the phone went.
all right. Did you hear the question?
Not really, because Catherine was talking on the phone.
No, my daughter phoned, sorry, and I couldn't just put phone down on her.
That's right. So the word God, I'd like you to give me a number between 1 and 10. 10 being I absolutely love the word, best word. 1 being despise it, don't use it. Colin, what would you say? What would you give?
5 indifferent.
5's indifferent. That'll do. Yeah.
That's me then.
Yeah. Kath?
2.
2. Leanne?
I wouldn't give it a number.
No number. No number.
No.
Okay. Claire?
6.
Big Mac?
3.
3. Diane? Okay. M, did you hear the question?
No, I haven't got a question, but I can answer that.
Yeah, that's all. I want that. I want that.
Oh, I can give you a number. Yeah, so it depends where my head is on
Yeah.
the word God.
Okay,
so-
go. Just right now.
Right now, 2.
And Heidi, did you hear the question, love?
No, I didn't. Sorry, I had to go out. I'm back in now. What was it?
All right. So the word God, we're all you looking at the same. Really love it, and 1 meaning I cannot stand it. Don't use it. How would you sit on? What would your number be, Heidi?
Sorry, some of that froze. What was all of that?
Sorry, look. So between the numbers, the word God, so give me a number between 10 and 1. 10 being I absolutely love the word, and 1 being I really don't like it. Don't use it. What would you say for your opinion of the word God when you hear it spoken?
Okay, well, just the word. I would say I'm at a 10.
Okay.
But anyway, I'll shut up.
Okay. Diane, are you still there, love, or not? Okay, right, we'll leave Diane for now. Okay. So this is, you could swap the word God for wisdom. Well, this is the problem with words. You realize they're actually quite a clumsy communication tool. So this is how the numbers went, the scores went. We're all looking at exactly the same word. Okay, so I want people to get a sense of words, and I want people to get a sense of how we are all literally seeing a different reality, and when we converse with one another, we are literally speaking different languages to each other sometimes. Okay, so Kelly was a 10. Angie was a 4. Colin was a 5. Kath was a 2. Now Leanne, she said, I don't want to give a number. Leanne, Claire was a 6. Paul was a 3. Diane didn't hear the question, I don't think. M said 2. Heidi said 10. And whilst we've got Mel on, just for good measure, Mel, out of 10, what would you give the word God when you've heard it spoken, the word God, out of 10? 10 being I absolutely love it, awesome, I love hearing that word used in a sentence, or 1 being I really don't like it. What would you give?
Oh, probably like a 5. I used to not like it at all, but since hearing you guys speak and other people, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Okay.
I see it as something different, as like intelligent, so it doesn't bother me anymore.
Cool.
And just congratulations on your new baby.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. I was just waiting for Jess to go to sleep. I think she sensed I wanted to do something, so she's just laying there picking her nose in bed, just staring at the ceiling. It's like, oh, come on.
You look gorgeous. You look so beautiful.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much.
God bless
Lovely
you.
to hear you all. Thank you.
You too, lovely. Diane, did you hear the question?
No, my son rang me up. He's got a house problem.
Okay.
So he's ringing me back in a minute. So can you tell me it quick?
Yeah, out of 10. 10 being I absolutely love it, and 1 being I absolutely hate it. Where do you stand on the word God when it's used in a sentence?
That changes over time.
Yep.
Has changed lots. It's going up the scale. The more I'm in this conversation, the higher up that scale it gets.
Okay.
So it probably started off at about a 2, and now it's hovering around the 9.
No, all right. We haven't see. That's nice. Thank you, Dan. So yeah, so Kelly gave a 10. Bearing in mind, we're all talking about exactly the same word, the same noise. It's words and noises that we make in order to convey messages, because we all live in different realities. And this is the only reason why we actually have words, because if it wasn't for the fact that we didn't live in different realities, there'd be no need for conversation, because we would all just see it the same. There'd be nothing to talk about.
I think this morning, me and you managed to have a whole conversation. And it was only in the last final bit we realised we were talking 2 different complete conversations. Like I was saying, everything seemed to fit. And then I realised I was talking about going for a bike ride to Chorley Woods. And Dave was like, we've got a haircut at 10 o'clock.
We're hairdresser at 10 o'clock. Where the hell are you going?
And then I was like, oh, that's why you're up and ready. And just...
Paul, don't you laugh at my haircut.
But it was just mental, because we both thought that each other knew what... It was obvious to me, so I thought it was obvious to Dave. And it was obvious to you, so you thought it was obvious to me. And I think that's the thing. Like,
Welcome to our world.
we realise with the word, like, if you say the word God to someone and it means like it's the most beautiful thing, but to them they absolutely hate it, they could be offended. And both way round, you can see how easy it is for us to misunderstand and miscommunicate, because even words mean different things to us.
So it's like, come back to that word wisdom. What number would I give the word wisdom? Depends on its context. You see, it's like, so what we did end up with was, we ended up with Kelly 10, Ange 9, Colin 5, Kath 2, Leanne, no number, doesn't want to give a number to God.
Andy was 4, I think.
Huh?
Andy was 4.
That's what I said.
You said 9.
Oh yeah, sorry, Ange was 4. Claire 6, Paul 3, Emma 2, Heidi 10, Mel 5, and Diana 9. You see, we are, even just with one word, that's before we even string a sentence together. That's before we say the word media or anything like that, or COVID or relationship or love or anything like that. Just one word, you can see the dynamic and the difference that we all see in just a singular word. Now, this is the nature of reality. This is always taking place. We're all literally dreaming up different ideas. I love it with Diane, you were one person, and Mel was another person on this call who said, well, throughout time, my opinion of this, and Kel, you're another one, my opinion on this word has changed. And it's like, you see that nothing is fixed in mind. Nothing is fixed in mind. Rigidity in mind is what causes suffering. When people are unable to open up their minds to consider that they are infinite thinkers, and they mistaken themselves for conditioned thinkers, for an ego, for who they think they are, or what they think they are, what they think is possible, or what they think they're capable of. So I feel like that's just a quite simple little exercise just to point out, you know, when we are having conversations with people, we are talking from different worlds, from one world, literally from one world into another world. We're literally talking from one world directly into another world. The world we know exists within our mind. We create it. We are the generators of a world. If our world is full of confusion and heartache and pain, we're creating that. If we feel lonely, we're creating that. If we feel joyous, we're creating that. We're creating the entirety of existence. This is beyond our current knowledge of how all this takes place. I really need to stress this point because I do not know how all this takes place. It's too big for me. I just know it's true. That there is something within us that our intellect cannot see. And it will never see it. But it's the very thing that we're looking for, which is why people over time have meditated and meditate. It's why when people go for walks and their minds get quieter, they feel better. Because it's whole and it's perfect and it cannot be broken. And it's the most indescribable love. It's the thing that heals all things. It's the thing that heals the bones. It's the thing that heals this broken skin. It's the thing that heals the heart. It's the thing that heals relationships. It's the thing that heals countries. It's the thing that heals divisions between countries. It's the thing that heals the world. It's simple, it's love. And you must find it within yourself before you can find it within anything else. But the moment you find it within yourself, you realize you found it within everything else. And you will realize that all things are that. It's no use trying to heal a relationship if our self is divided. We must find the love for ourselves before we can truly have a really blossoming relationship. Otherwise, we will just argue and cause division between ourselves. And this is what this is all about. This is not about healing relationships. This is about healing the self.
Realizing the self.
Realizing this, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, well pointed out, Jen. Realizing the self. That's all this is about. People want to have a conversation with us, talk about the principles and relationships. No. Well, we will.
I was just thinking.
But I don't really want to because it's not the point.
But it was interesting. Yes, we're doing an interview tomorrow, and it's someone who wants us to talk about intimacy, sex, and relationships with the 3 principles understanding. So when she messaged me on Facebook and I didn't actually see it for ages, and then I saw it and I said it to you, and you're like, I don't really like doing the 3 principles and kind of conversations.
Principles in the eating disorders or anger and depression or anxiety.
But then when we had a conversation with the lady, when she told us a little bit more about her project, because she's already got 3 or 4 calls on YouTube with different people. It was interesting because I started to notice my ego in terms of my ease of conversation around certain topics, and how easy she was with using certain words and certain stories, and I could feel myself getting uncomfortable. So I started noticing my own ego, and I realized that actually it'd be a really interesting conversation to have, because it's something that I felt really embarrassed talking about to someone I didn't know. And I started to see my own ego, and like, you absolutely do not care. Like, I sometimes have to say to Dave, right, this is one of those things you don't share with people, you know, because you would just share anything. You don't really get embarrassed. It doesn't really occur to you. And I just thought, what a beautiful opportunity to see my own ego and come up against my own limits, my own beliefs, and who I think I am and what I have to be me, and how seriously I take myself. So we've said yes to this conversation. But one of the things, she told us a couple of really funny stories. And one of the things I said to her is, when I was like early teenager, I used to get really embarrassed when I saw people that were pregnant, because I'd be like, oh my God, that means you've had sex. And I'd just get really embarrassed by it. And she was like, oh my God, that's the most innocent, sweet thing I've ever heard. And different stories that we shared, you saw how differently we see certain words, how differently we see what's appropriate and not appropriate. And it's like it's always learning about yourself.
Yeah,
like
a limitation that you've placed upon your own being.
Yeah, and like seeing this lady share, she was so free with her conversation. I was like, wow, you obviously don't have any thinking around that kind of. I think my mum and dad are here. Dog in. Rather than walk away around. Rusty! Sorry.
I had Rusty in a rucksack today. We went into Debenhams. You're not supposed to take a dog into Debenhams. He fucking spewed up.
Like everywhere.
This woman tapped me on the shoulder and went, I think your dog's just been sick. I was like, you're joking. I turned around, there's a big pile of sick in the middle of Debenhams floor.
All over my really nice backpack.
Oh,
bless him.
bless Russ.
He seems all right now.
Yeah, you know, this conversation isn't about healing traits. Because this conversation is just a bunch of words. That's all this conversation is. It's all any conversation is. It's just a bunch of words put together like poetry. Not that I sound like I'm poetic, but poetry, insofar as it's designed, it's a conversation. What conversations are the attempt to generate an experience within another person. That's what conversations are all about. To try and generate what this reality is trying to say to this reality. I want you to understand my world. So all conversations are about. But what we're talking about isn't about healing a trait. Take addiction or whatever it is. It's not about healing that, because this conversation cannot heal anything. What we're talking about is being open to the idea that you are not what you think you are. Nobody is what they think they are, because you can never know what you are. It's too big. It's too implausible to the intellect. This conversation is about the nature of behind the scenes of reality. Because there is a behind the scenes of this reality. The reality we see now is a consequence. It's a manifestation. There is something that manifests it. And it is us. It is something that we give the word consciousness to. Now I could do a poll now and say, who here understands the word consciousness? Give me a number between 10 and 1. I'll have all different kinds of numbers come up. That's the most important conversation to be having. That's the most important thing to start looking at. Because when an individual does happen to stumble across themselves, when I say stumble across themselves, or it stumbles across you, because it doesn't work in a sense that's logical to the intellect, because it's both at the same time. It's all the same thing. That will heal things that you didn't even know were broken. Aspects of self that have been so blindly missed, we don't even think they're a problem. That will take an ego and it'll like putting it through a 90-degree wash in a washing machine and then tumble drying it. It will get your whites whiter than white. And then you'll mucky them up again. But it's that space within ourselves that we wake up to. This place of what people call, or what we could describe as pure, completely untainted, unconditional, does not give a fuck what you've done about in your past, does not care who you think you are. Love. that is the thing that they've spoken about in the Bible. It's what they speak about in religious texts. It's the thing that when people wake up to it within themselves, they are reborn. That's what Jesus described as the virgin birth. When you wake up with the birth that is given from mother wisdom. That was how it was described. The birth that takes place from within mother wisdom, when an individual finds that pure unconditional love, that pure wisdom, that pure knowledge, they're reborn. They're reborn in the same body. They are reborn into a whole new world. They're reborn into a new consciousness, a new way of seeing life. These people change like that. Or perhaps they change incrementally through touching it, gradually just touching it, and change incrementally. But it is always in the direction of love, but that direction of love will bring about with it, it will bring upset and trauma and pain sometimes. Because this isn't about staying in the same place. This is about fully realizing life and starting to live from it, from that level of consciousness that we're describing, because that level of consciousness that I'm describing, there's fucking infinite beyond that.
I think also it's the realization of there is nothing to improve upon. What we are is already complete, like whole. And I feel like the coming across the principles and learning and being around it and sharing, it's just been a complete drop. It's a dropping away of everything I'm not. Like the only thing that prevents us experiencing what we are is belief and thought that doesn't look like thought and all of that stuff. And it's like, as that starts to fall off, it's almost like you just become more and more of what you already are. Like there isn't anything to do, there isn't anything to improve upon. Like it's what we already are before the story. And like when you woke up, like a huge chunk of your ego just died. But there's certain other elements, you said, then suddenly things you've seen about your character now, like you didn't even know existed before. So it's like there's then this, you thought almost like you died and be reborn, but then there's all these other parts of your character that
Become visible.
Yeah, suddenly become visible. So sometimes it's quite uncomfortable because you're like, wow, I think like that. Wow, I've got all of that thinking.
It's deeply humbling.
But also I think it's like you recognize, like the way I used to describe it when I first came across it was that it was almost like I used to live in like the dream world. So in the same way at night, when you dream, you're dreaming all kinds of things. It could be amazing and you don't want to wake up. And when you wake up, you're disappointed because you want to go back into it. Or it could be the most awful dream and your heart's pounding and then you wake up from it. Whatever you're dreaming, you're in bed and you're safe and you're dreaming. And I think the principles gave me that same security or safety in life. Like whatever my mind's dreaming up, I'm safe. We're safe. We're safe. We're safe to dream anything. We're never not tucked up safely in our bed, as a metaphor. Like that's where we are. That's where we exist. That's what that oneness space is from everything else emerged. And then your character and your ego gets to play out life as an individual and have dramas and tragedies and bliss and wonder and all the full range. But it's like the security comes, or it's like there's nothing you have to protect anymore. There's nothing we can't take. There's no, what goes on in our mind, in the same way dreams can be totally bizarre. Like we don't generally spend a lot of time thinking, oh God, what does that mean about me that I had that dream? Oh God, I can just see Mel's baby.
Oh, Mel.
Mel.
Put it away.
What's her name? Catherine did tell me, but
Isabel.
Oh, Isabel, look at her.
Oh, she's so precious.
She's beautiful.
Amazing little thing.
Bless her. Give her
Yeah.
a kiss from us.
I don't think
will.
much ego yet.
Hmm?
I don't think she's got much ego yet.
No, none at all. It's just beautiful watching her with just no thought. Like nothing that we'll ever understand anyway, I guess. I don't know. Amazing.
Teachers.
My sister was saying, my sister was at Mel's first birth, and then she's got to be at her second birth, and she said when her and Jess saw each other again. So Jess, is she 5 now?
She's 4.5. So yeah, she's
They just like, it's almost like they just like
It was
drawn to each other.
It was amazing. She hadn't seen Catherine for 2 years, and my waters had gone in the morning, and Catherine came over. Literally, she was here within like 4 hours, and she just said to Jess, "Oh, let's just go out." Jess was like, "Okay," and Jess has like spent her entire life with me. She doesn't really go with anyone. I mean, she's getting better now. Obviously, she's getting older and she's going to preschool now. But she just went off, and then after I had the baby, and we came home, she went off again for like 3 hours with Catherine. There's like this little bond, like it's just, yeah, it's magical. It's absolutely magical.
My sister was saying what a beauty, like just, but all of you, and she said, but she's just seeing how present Jess is in life, and how just, she just said she's a very awake little girl, and she loved being with you.
She was, Catherine, obviously we just had the best few days, and it was amazing. Really lucky to have her there. And
Last
this
time
little one is
I was
just,
here, was you were showing us your bump.
I know. I know. I'm glad she was a few days early, I must admit, because I was getting a tad uncomfortable. So I was quite pleased when she when she came.
Angie's just said she's gorgeous. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she's a sweet little soul. She really is.
She is.
Thank you.
10-minute break.
Oh, lovely.
I can have a cuddle on the break, Mel. No,
Yeah, virtual hug.
Mel.
Right.
10 minutes.
See you in a bit.
Another 10 minutes.
Bye.
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 Welcome back. Saying Kelly looks like she's dressed in all Kiki's clothes.
She looks so cool.
Down with kids and ting. Got her Air Force Ones on.
Oh, God. That's Lewin's t-shirt.
Is that Lewin's?
No, it should be. We said it was going to be interactive, and we've talked a lot, so it would be nice to hear from people if other people have questions or comments.
Reflections or anything like that.
Can I ask a question?
Di, hit us.
How do we get so stuck for so long when everything's supposed to be flowing, but you end up stuck for months in the same place and can't seem to find a way out?
Awesome question.
And the more you try and get out, the more you seem to be stuck in.
Yeah. You know, thought creates reality. The power of thought, the power of wisdom, for argument's sake in this conversation tonight. It creates the reality you see. There's that whole thing, isn't there, in psychology? Now, do not think of a polar bear. Don't think of fuck. And this is the thing, everything we're trying to let go of is actually something we're thinking about. But it's interesting, when our mind completely goes off the subject, there is zero, and this is something we want people to reflect upon and to notice within life, there is zero experience of what we were thinking about. When our mind's moved on, say we're busy following a recipe on something we're cooking for tea. We had a problem this morning. Now we're on lunchtime, following a recipe, say, just for argument's sake. There is zero experience of the problem at lunchtime in the morning. Why? It's because we're now in the experience of following a recipe. and whatever we're dreaming up about that.
But what if the experience is a physical one?
Could you be more specific on that?
Yeah. So I've had some health issues for about the last 6 or 7 months. And partly due to the lockdown, I needed some dental work doing and it couldn't get done because of the lockdown. There were no dentists. And it's ended up a bit of a nightmare, and me having to have most of my teeth out. And yeah, and it's still an ongoing thing. And I've had to swap dentists now. And I've finally got a dentist now who can deal with the problem. But it's been like, well, it started 14 months ago, just before the lockdown, actually. So it's been like an ongoing sort of painful, horrendous nightmare. And I've got I'm terrified of the dentist anyway. And I do have anxiety and panic attacks in the past. And obviously that's reared up because of this. So I'm constantly taking antibiotics for abscesses and constant pain in my teeth. And every meal time's a nightmare because I can't eat what I want. And it just seems impossible to get out of because you're thinking about it all the time.
Yeah. I think one of the, now try and hear me out with this statement. One of the greatest causes of suffering, or in fact, probably the greatest cause of suffering, is thinking that the way we or the world is should be different to how it is.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a big thing within spiritual communities, and we talk about acceptance a lot, living in the now, being present with what is, lack of judgment. Because ultimately the dentist isn't a scary thing. You see, it's only, that's a thought. That's a thought creating an experience. Perhaps you went to the dentist once and you had a shitty experience, which in the moment was generated by thought then, which you now carry through time. So you carry this moment of time with you now as though it's real and a fact and it's who you are. This is just who I am. I'm this person who's afraid of the dentist. No, that was made up on the spot. And you carry it with you now through time. We do this about all kinds of things. We make up our minds. We say I've made my mind up about something. And what that ultimately is a stubbornness and a refusal to see what is truly going on, that we are living in this thought-created experience. And it's like, pain's an interesting thing as well, because people go, well, pain's a feeling state, it's an experience. Yeah, it's interesting when our mind isn't on the pain, when we're, say, watching a funny film or something like that, and our consciousness is completely on something different. There is zero experience of pain in that moment. Yeah, you see, so it's like pain isn't something different to what we're talking about. Pain's a really useful thing within the body. 90% of the time, 95% of the time, it is alerting us to an aspect of the body that needs us to give it a little bit of attention. Perhaps we need to go and see somebody who knows about that part of the body. Perhaps we need to stop moving it. Perhaps we need to stop using it and just let it recover from whatever damage has occurred. And then these people who live in pain that move around their body is a psychological, energetic thing that's taking place. It's because the body is entirely made of energy. Everything is energy. Everything is made of nothingness, manifest as a somethingness. Even the body, the reality we see in the body, the whole world is a vibration of energy that appears to us as it does because of the senses. Because of the senses, which in themselves are a vibration. This is why everything is one. Everything is one. Showing up as infinite vibrations, waves of energy. So it's like, in this physical incarnation, the body will experience pain, part of it. I'm sure Mel, when she gave birth, she experienced some pain. Perhaps it was, this is terrible, perhaps it wasn't as bad as what she thought. You know, and it's like, if we can see, it's really easy to go, I can see consciousness involved in this, like in my thoughts, in my feelings. I can't see consciousness involved in pain. We must collapse the dualities of it's this but not that, and start to wake up and realize, without consciousness, I simply couldn't feel pain. I wouldn't be able to feel pain if I wasn't aware of pain. And it's interesting, my awareness of pain disappears when I'm watching a funny film. If I've got a bad back and I'm watching a funny film, I have no pain. As long as my consciousness is not on pain. This isn't like a means by which I'm saying to kind of get rid of pain, because pain's a useful thing. Everybody's trying to get rid of pain. Stop trying to get rid of pain and address its problem. You know, and so, yeah, it's been a bit of a shitty time. You haven't been able to get to the dentist. That's really shit. And now you've got some abscesses. That's really shit. There is what there is. And then there's all the judgments and stories and backstories, including my own that I just gave just then. You know, if an individual can have the experience without the judgment, their life will get easier instantaneously. They may even find that the pain diminishes a fair bit. You know, so much more pain is added when, if I think about my bad back and I've got a bad back, my bad back really hurts. I really notice it at that point. My pain goes from like a 7 up to a 9, perhaps 9.5. And then when my mind comes off it, perhaps it goes down to a 5, a 4, or a 3, or perhaps I don't even notice it at all.
And you can feel the resistance. That's maybe what I was trying to say about the being stuck. It's like I'm stuck in the resistance that I don't want it. Why should it be me? You know, why did my teeth have to go wrong in the middle of a lockdown? Why did the dentist, I don't know what she did, but I had like pieces of my jaw stuck out my gum for months. Why did that? This ongoing story, I can't seem to let it go.
That's the thing you're suffering, really.
Yeah, it is. It's the story, because this isn't so bad.
Interesting, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. You've seen that.
Yeah.
The fact that you've become aware of that in itself is absolutely fantastic. You know, most people would idly just not even notice it was a story. They would just go the full-on blown 3-dimensional experience of life as being true. It's only true for as long as we're thinking it. Because the moment we think something different, now that's true, no, that's true, that's true, that's true, that's true. You know, you could say true and false are exactly the same thing. Are they all true or are they all false? Well, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Because to consciousness, to reality, to wisdom, to thought, it's all the same thing. It creates from a potential a reality. You change the potential, you change the reality. What is the potential? The potential is a thought. What is thought? It's infinite potential. We get stuck on potentials, not realizing that's all they are. We think they're real. We think it's full-blown, this is all there is. And most people aren't aware that when their mind changes, reality changes with them.
I'm definitely in that place where I'm sort of behind it all, watching it all.
Cool.
You know, where I can see this story playing over and over and over, and it's like the pain and the story are two separate things.
Yes.
The pain is the pain, the story is the story, and I'm behind it watching it all play out. But I think there's times where I'm suddenly in that story and it feels so real and so scary and so believable.
Yeah.
And then
Cool,
I'm back watching it again. But it seems to have been going on for months. I think, where does it stop, or is this where it stays? Is this it? Will I just watch it out till it's over?
It'll do whatever it does. But the moment we go to war with reality,
Yeah.
is ultimately us going to war with ourselves.
And that's what it feels like, an inside battle.
Yeah, it feels like an inside battle. Now, there is no winner in that inside battle, because really what you're doing is you're fighting yourself. You're fighting a story you made up.
Yeah. And I can feel it.
Yep. So we end up fighting these stories that we made up, thinking that somehow there is humanity is trained to battle. We're trained in defending ourselves. We must defend ourselves. Got to defend us. That's why, look at this. What's this one? Say no to osteoarthritis. It's like, and what's this? There's a worldwide cancer research one there. I mean, these people go along with slogans like "fight cancer," "fight this."
Hate that. Hate that.
And this is what we do. Humanity has reduced itself to fighting everything. What the fuck are we actually fighting? We're fighting ourselves continuously. We're a constant battle with ourselves. And so we've been taught to fight our mind, because we've been taught that we've been taught in ignorance that the mind is something that we should actually be afraid of, and therefore we must always think in this certain way. Don't step out of this certain realm of thoughts, whatever the hell you do. And then because we've not understood reality, we found ourselves fearing reality, fearing this world, fearing one another, fearing ourselves. And this is all because we are blind to the fact that reality is a state of mind. Whatever state of mind is the state of reality that we encounter. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing continuously. But in that ignorance, we've been taught to fight. You go to even a progressive therapist now, and they will tell you, if you have these kind of thoughts, perhaps you could think like this, perhaps you could dream about that, whatever, and they'll try and get you to change your mind. Somebody who wakes up and realizes the nature of mind realizes they don't need to change their mind. Realizes they ultimately never could. You cannot change your mind.
We are making the thoughts come anyway, are we?
Well, nobody else is doing it for us. So it's a yes and no to that one, depending on your angle.
But we are choosing them, are we? I sat here thinking, right, I'm going to think about my teeth and how much they're hurting and how much I hate myself and all that. It's not like putting thoughts into my own head, is it?
Again, who else is doing it? But at the same time, you wouldn't choose them. That feels like we're going down the realms of free will. So it's like, it's yes and no, ultimately, really. And probably no and nothing and all kinds of shit, because it doesn't operate in the way that we're trying to linearly think, because our being is not a linear thing. Time is linear. We think in time. The being isn't in time. The being's in the moment. And in the moment is all time, because that's all there is. So we're always trying to piece together thought in terms of a linear thing. You can't. You must let go of all linearity when it comes to thought, thinking, consciousness, wisdom, mind. You've got to let go of linearity. But the ego can't let go of, the intellect can't let go of linearity, because it's the linearity creator. That's where the linearity is actually generated. So it's like, am I thinking this or am I not thinking this? It's both.
Yeah.
One of the stories that came to mind is, I'll tell you why it's relevant when I've said it, but a few months ago, Goodell, who's someone we worked with out in South Africa through Leanne, I think Leanne's gone now, but he is a refugee from the Congo living in South Africa. And he's been through all kinds of hardships. And when we met him, he had been physically disabled. So he was in a wheelchair for about 19 years, I think, at the time we met him. maybe 16 years, I can't remember. But when he, as a kid, he trained to become a Catholic priest. And when he became disabled, they said he could no longer be a priest. I think that's actually only in Africa, the Catholic Church there. It's not the same in the UK. So he kind of fell out with God. And then when we went to teach the principles, what he found was, in his words, was he went from a God out there to a God inside. He realized really what religion was pointing to. And a few months ago on one of our community groups, he shared a story of he'd been working so hard to save up money to pay to go back to the Congo to put gravestones there for his parents. And he'd paid for the flight and he'd paid for his accommodation for 2 weeks to be there. And then when he got to the airport, Ethiopian Airlines said he couldn't board the flight because he was disabled and he was in a wheelchair. He couldn't board the flight. So he was left at the airport in Johannesburg. And he just said, I was angry. I was livid. I thought I couldn't believe it had happened. And I felt victimized. And he said, and I went home and I took it out on my family and I took it out on my kids and I was horrible. And he said the next day he woke up and it's like he got reflective. Like, what is in this to teach me? What can I learn from this? And he said he learned something about his ego because he's always kind of shied away from having pictures of himself in the wheelchair. And he hasn't really wanted it to be publicized that he's in a wheelchair. And suddenly this photograph of him being stuck at the airport was all over Facebook. It was everywhere. And he realized an aspect of his ego. And he saw that the story he lived out of wasn't true. And it's like, that's what freed him. And like, if you're kind of reliving the same story over and over and over again, and it can wind you up, it's like, you think that story's true. And I think what I always get from speaking to Goodell is he's someone for some reason that in his life just seems to really learn about himself from experience. He's like, what is this to teach me? So it seems like the shittiest experience. Like, I was so angry when I saw the post about it. I was like, oh, wankers. I know how hard he works and what it meant to him. And we'd managed to donate some money towards him being able to get the flights. And I was like, can't believe they've done that to him. But it's like, if we see learning in experience and learning in life, like we have a different perspective. We get insight, we get new thought. But I think sometimes we just get really attached to our story of something and we think it's true. So it's like, then we're trying to almost convince ourselves of a different story. Yeah, but this one's true. But when you start to recognize it's all stories. And I think that's the thing that frees us. Like, otherwise we're looking to try and change our mind or try and feel different. But when you described that sometimes you're just aware of the kind of battle, and then sometimes you're totally in the story, like the awareness is what seems to shift and change us, because you're starting to identify with a space before the story more of the time. And like Kelly was saying, it's not that it's not uncomfortable still, but you're starting to have this awareness, and that's where we grow and learn about ourselves. And we start to challenge our own mind, not in a like, I have to go to war with it, but like, is this true? I have to, like, there's been times I've said, oh God, I don't actually have to think about this. Like, I'll be torturing myself with something that I hate to think about.
Trying to figure it out.
And then I'll go, like, I'll just get a new thought. Oh, I actually don't have to think about this. And actually, do you know what? I've thought about this about 10,000 times and I've never got anywhere with it.
It's just replaying and the sort of feeling that goes with it. It's like a sort of knife in your belly feeling, and think, you know, it's a self-inflicted sort of torture that's going on that you're watching. And but also in it, I'm like telling another story, like you just said, there's another story going on. There's like, oh my God, Diane, there's people dying of coronavirus, there's people suffering, we've been through this, and you're whinging on about a few little teeth or what, you know, it seems to like feed on itself, and you've got all these other stories attaching to it then. But all the time I'm watching these stories, all the time I'm watching them, but I can't seem to get any further away from them somehow.
You will. At some point, you will.
I love that you've acknowledged and noticed, like Keith Blevins calls them thought babies. He said, like, it's just one thought leads to another, it's like multiplies. And then at some point, like Dave was like, you're just cooking your dinner or something, or you're just watching a movie, and all of that's died without you trying to do anything. And it is all the trying, all the judgment you've then placed on top of your story. So then you haven't only just got like, no wonder you're exhausted. No wonder. I think it's saying our internet's unstable. I'm not sure if it's. Let us know if it gets too bad. We've got no other internet to switch to this time. But you can see that it's thought upon thought upon thought upon thought. And I know Terry Rubenstein has written a beautiful book. I don't know which she's written one called Exquisite Mind and one called The Peach You Thought She Was Supposed to Be a Coconut or something.
Oh, that's amazing. I've just been tidying my bookshelf today and I took that off today.
So I think is that where she speaks about her, because she was in pain for a year.
For years, yeah.
And she got to the point where her eye wouldn't close because she had, is it Bell's palsy?
Something like that.
Bell's, where her face dropped down.
Yeah, and just chronic pain in her head.
Her eardrum couldn't close, could it? Oh.
Yeah, it was. So she had to have Botox in to close her eyes shut. And she talks about that space of observing. It was fascinating to hear because she'd been around the principles quite a long time at that point. But she talks about that as being some of the most incredible time of her life, even though she was in the most excruciating pain. But what she started to learn and notice about mind and about, for her, God. And I think that's when we start to get eyes and ears for learning. And like when you're speaking, I feel like you've got so much perspective in there and so much you've already seen, but we don't get grateful for that. We're like, yeah, but now what? Now what do I do about it? And it's like the seeing is actually it. The seeing is enough because you're opening yourself up to new thought. You're not saying this is how it is and it's fixed. You're saying, wow, I'm seeing this more for what it is. So I'm hearing a lot of understanding and insight in what you're saying. But I think as human beings, we want to know the next bit. Now, what do I do about it?
And we're always looking for an ending, like Dave said about the linear, the time. I mean, that can only ever be our mind, can't it? But there's this constant thing. Well, if it's all over in a month's time, then that means that I won't be like this when we might be able to go on holiday. Or this constant time thing. How long it's been, there's this many months and this happened and it's this long and that long, and now, all that is another added thing on. It's just is what it is now, but the story in my mind is like it needs an end date to be. If there was an end date, then I'd be all right, but I'm sure I wouldn't. But that's what it's telling me. All that time stuff.
Yeah, it can be really easy in this world, in this incarnation, to feel victimized. You see it everywhere. People blaming one another. I'm a victim of what you did. You're a victim of what I did. I'm a victim of my own mind. Ultimately, that's the truth behind it all. We're only ever victims of our own mind. COVID, we can blame the COVID. I'm not being cruel when I say this. I just want to point something out. You can blame COVID. Now I'm a victim of COVID. Blame the dentist, what she did. Now I'm a victim of her. I'm a victim. Fucking ego loves being a victim.
Yeah.
Because it has zero responsibility to take for itself. And it gets attention in the guise of what appears to be love, the thing that we're actually looking for. We go in search of it through victimhood. You see kids at school doing this all the time. I used to have a mate at school. Fucking hell, I wish I'd never done this to him. God bless him. I used to do all right with the girls, and he said to me, "How'd you get girls?" I was like, "You want girls' attention?" Yeah. So all right. After break, go to your desk. Put your head on the desk and act like you're really upset. I said, women can't resist it, girls can't resist it, mate. Next thing, in walks this girl called Rosie Money, and my mate adored her. And she walks up to me and goes, I'm not going to say his name. What's wrong? Are you okay? He was like this, looking up at her. I saw the penny drop with this lad. Fuck, I can use this for everything. Right. He turned into the biggest frigging victim, and I think it was my fault. He turned into the biggest victim of life. Oh, everybody owed him. Everybody owed him. He did everything for everybody, and nobody did anything for him. I only want what I deserve. You know, he didn't do something out of the kindness of his heart, just for the kindness of his heart. He did it for something in return. And, you know, but I want to look like I'm doing it out of the kindness of my heart. But when that person doesn't return it to me, then, oh, they're wankers. And it was like, up until, well, I haven't seen him for a couple of years, but a couple of years ago I saw him and he was still the same old way. Victim of this world, never happy, seriously, deeply unhappy. But it all started because he wanted love. He wanted love, and he wanted attention, and he wanted to feel validated in life. He wanted to feel comfortable in himself. He wanted to feel like he belonged, and he was acceptable to people. Really what he was searching for was to be acceptable to himself. Really the love that he was looking for was his very own being. And the victim that this lad lived was an absolute consequence of his own mind. It was nobody else. Yeah, absolutely. You're damn right, Big Mac. You tell her. No, I'm joking. I was joking. I just saw Claire give Paul a slap. But you see, we're always trying to blame something because it feels like it's justified negativity, as you often say, which you said, Keith said. Justified negativity, you know, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's nobody else's fault if we're feeling victimized. It's nobody else's fault if we're feeling upset. It's nobody else's fault if we're feeling like we've been hard done to. We are generating the experience of all things in all time. This is what we're pointing to. There is no outside of this fact. 100% of the time we are living in our dream of reality that we are dreaming into existence. We are dreaming this experience into being. And there is no victimhood in that. There is just pure power. It will bring to life everything we think. It will bring to life everything that we think. And this is why this conversation is important. And Diane, I'm hearing the penny is, I'm hearing it, like Jen said, behind your words, you are talking with awareness.
Well, I just wanted to say, one of the things that Sid said is like, raise your level of conscious state. Is how he used to describe it. So raise your level of awareness. And when you were speaking, it reminded me, like, I've had a friend who had a bit of a disagreement with about something. And
who's this?
I'm not going to say. And I felt like they'd really taken advantage and wronged me in lots of ways. But then I had a lot of understanding of where they were at and why they acted like that. If my mood drops in the middle of the night, I'm like, I can't believe it. They're such a bastard. Blah, blah, blah. My head can go off on one, and I'm laying there in the experience, and my heart's racing.
This is me, isn't it?
No. And then as soon as my level of well-being, my level of consciousness, my awareness goes up, I can think about that exact situation with no feeling attached to it. And I think you start to see, like, with your mind, you start to notice when we're not feeling so good, we view the world from that place. So problems, the past, the future, like we view it all from that.
And then everything's a problem.
And as soon as we lift our awareness and raise our level of consciousness, everything starts to look different. We find understanding and compassion and love and all those things. So,
and that's effortless.
What I'm hearing and what you're saying is like there's just an awareness that's happened within you, and then you're aware that you've got this time frame. Well, actually, I can cope with this for another month, but after that, you're starting to notice in the moment thought creating experience, and it's like that's the awareness.
And that thought creating that experience is so visceral, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a bullet in your belly.
Well, it's doing it right now. It's creating this conversation we're having now. This is it.
Yeah.
What we're talking about isn't something in the past or the future. What we're talking about is this very moment. We are living in the dream state of our own mind. This is why I used the word God and saw what numbers came out, because I wanted everybody to see we're all dreaming a different dream. There is nobody no two people on earth dream the same dream. They never have and they never will. It's not the nature of God. It's not the nature of wisdom. It's not the nature of source. It wants infinite experiences. Why would it have the same experience twice when it could have all different kinds of experiences? And this is the nature of our life. This is why we are here. We are experiential beings.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to look like something now. So
Okay, I'm on the webinar. Show me when you come in.
yeah, it's going to be finished.
Yeah.
Right,
No, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So
yeah.
you see it, and this moment is it. We're not talking about some out off the wall weird thing. We're not talking about some other time. We're talking about right now. Here we are, living in our dreamed up reality. Whatever this conversation means to you tonight, in this moment, is whatever is coming to you from your consciousness. It's that. And we are never, when you had that conversation with that gentleman just then, whatever was coming to you from your consciousness was how you interacted with him. And whatever he said, however you felt about it, wasn't coming from him, it was coming from within yourself continuously, because there is no outside of you that you will ever know. You can't know outside of you.
Yeah.
You can't know a cup of tea outside of your consciousness. You can't know the taste of a cake outside of consciousness. Like you can't feel the pain outside of consciousness. And you cannot experience a thought outside of consciousness, or a feeling outside of consciousness, or be aware that you even exist outside of consciousness. This is the spiritual aspect of our being that we must start to take into account as being the essence and the source of reality. Now, what I'm talking about now is just a scraping on the surface of its potential, because it's far greater than that. Because this is just a conversation.
But that's crazy when you say that. Nothing happens outside of our consciousness. Nothing. It can't, can it?
Nothing. You've never experienced anything outside of yourself, because there is no outside of yourself.
No cup of tea.
You drink your cup of tea. Whatever you experience, however you experience it, is coming from you.
Oh, that's crazy when now we've said that.
Have a look at it. You'll realize why there is no such thing as victims. Just thoughts.
But how easy we slip into that, and it don't even exist, does it? A victim, it doesn't exist, does it?
No, it doesn't exist. It exists as an experience within mind. You see, now this is such a beautiful thing, because when you go there, now you're off. You might forgive.
No such thing.
You can forgive people. Now imagine a world where everybody forgave each other tomorrow morning. What the fuck would this world look like? We would have a transformed world where people could communicate with one another and greet each other with openness and love. Somebody who realizes that victimhood, just that, and this is just one aspect of all infinite experiences. Victimhood is an experience of our own mind. They will find that has cataclysmic repercussions throughout their entire life towards love, compassion, and understanding, the very thing that they were searching for in the first place.
And you can live your life as a victim in one way or another.
Many people do, love. I did.
I think I probably have.
I think most of us have, love.
But it don't exist. How could it? It's just life, isn't it? It's just life doing its thing.
Yep. 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 Within this dream of life, our dream, what I could feel victimized by, Jenny might not.
Yeah.
Colin might not. Big Mac
And
might.
And what I have been really aware of is that I've always found the whole gratitude thing really difficult. I've never, the sort of kindness to yourself, that and gratitude. It's almost like there's a big barrier up for me with that. It's like, woof, no, you don't be kind to yourself. What's that all about? What could that possibly mean? Or the whole being grateful when life feels difficult a lot of the time. But this experience has like opened that up, because there's a part of me that's still in that, no, that's won't have anything to do with that. But I am so grateful, even after I've whinged and moaned about dentists and lockdowns, there's a part of me that is so grateful, because there's kids out there who don't even have a roof over their head, do they? Let alone a dentist or a doctor or a...
And be very careful about judging those people as well from how we perceive them to be experiencing reality. I did that when I went out to Nepal. Went out to this village 2 weeks, was it, after the big earthquakes?
3 weeks.
3 weeks after the big earthquakes. And I met a man there. I had a load of stuff, about 400 quid worth of stuff. And I'd carried it with me for a month, because I hadn't found the man I wanted to, or the woman that I wanted to give this to. Outdoor kit, good quality outdoor kit. Monsoons are coming, people don't have homes, because they're fucked. I went to this little village, and one of the most humbling experiences of my life. Went to this little village and met this man in this little wooden bamboo shelter with a corrugated iron roof, an older man. And I just asked him his name, and he told me his name, and I said, "Where's your home?" And he said, "My home's over there," and he pointed at this stack of little bricks. The bricks are about that big, tiny little bricks. Neatly stacked, cleaned off. And I was looking at this man, I had so much pity for him. And I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "Well, look, I really wanted you to have this stuff." And he didn't even look at it, he just pushed it back and said, "No, thank you." I said, "Please, no, I want you to take this. It's not a lot of money. You must sell this. You can sell this in Tamil, get a lot of money. Sell it to a Westerner." No. He put his hand on his heart and he just looked me right in the eye and he just said, "We have everything that we need, thank you." And he had nothing. But he was absolutely right. And I knew it in that moment, he was absolutely right. He had everything he needed. But it wasn't coming from the external, it was coming from within him. He was at peace with what was going on in this world. In his world, he was at peace. And then I remember going and giving you a massive hug as I burst into tears and we were stroking that little puppy. And then these three girls, these three beautiful little school kids came running out of this house, and the bottom half of the house had collapsed and the top half of the house was cockled like that, and they were living in it. It was ready to go anytime. And there was aftershocks whilst we were there, weren't there? And these three little girls held hands and they skipped across these stones in the mud in the whitest of white shirts. You've never seen white like it. It was unbelievable. And they laughed as they went on their way to school. It's really easy for us to look out and generate an experience of what we think other people are experiencing, and then give them pity and pity them. And I pitied these people. Fuck me, my pitying was arrogance. Ignorance, should I say. My pitying was ignorance. They didn't need pitying. They were absolutely fine, even in the face of what looks like on an external thing, a terrible situation. They were whole, they were mentally healthy, they were accepting, they were at peace.
So it's all another part of the story, isn't it? That
it's all the same thing, love.
It's all the same thing, isn't it?
It's all the same thing. If you can see it's all the same thing, you see past duality.
The victimhood, the pain, the story that leads on to another story, to leads on to I should be feeling this and I should be feeling that, and all of it. It's just the same.
It's all the same thing.
It's all the same.
It's all the same thing.
just, it's like you were saying about the words, isn't it? It's just words as well. Not only is it all the same thing, it could be all different words and it still be all the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it'd be different words in somebody else's head.
Yeah.
And different words in my head. And they're all a load of story and they're all the same thing.
Yeah. This is why Sid was always talking about truth. And he said, you know, you will not find truth in what's created. It's made of truth, yes, because everything is made of truth. Like every single wave is made of ocean. We keep on looking at the waves to try and see the ocean. We keep on getting mesmerized by the waves, thinking that's what we are. So it's like Sid was always talking about, you must find truth. God is truth. God is love. Love is truth. Love is singular. Love is non-judging. These are all clues to the true nature of beingness. Judgment, you see what the ego is. The ego is the absolute opposite of all those things. The ego is an illusion. It's an illusion of self. The self is the being without judgment. It is pure awareness. It is the capacity for infinite thought, for infinite experience. We keep on locating ourselves as experiences, or our life. What our life is this experience, is that experience. We live in the past. Life doesn't live in the past. Life lives in the now. If we can start to see that, it's like put these clues together and start to see that reality is a constant state of infinite experience taking place in the now. This is a magical thing. This is a completely mind-bending notion. But the reality is mind-bending. We are mind-bending. What we truly are is fucking amazing. And we limit ourselves through this victimhood. We limit our amazingness through to just ego, just limitation.
I know someone on one of our courses once said, how can I be happy when there's people in the world suffering? I shouldn't be happy. And like we saw it a lot when we were out in South Africa, like people who we would think would be suffering because they'd lived in pretty dire situations. And there's one lady who was harbouring a nephew who was hiding from gangsters and the police. Her son had died shortly after coming out of jail. Her daughter was on tick and a prostitute. And this woman was so full of love and like she was hilarious. She had so much joy and love for life. She actually got to speak at the One Solution conference in Cape Town. I said, they gave me like a half an hour slot. And I said, would it be all right if I have a couple of the women we've been working with come up on stage with me? So I kind of did my piece as quickly as possible and kind of gave over to her. And then we'd meet people who seemingly had very privileged lives and they were driving themselves mad about seemingly small things, but you could see that they were totally suffering. Like I saw my ego and like, wow.
Yeah, we went from there to this very rich Jewish house, didn't we, with these women. And one of these young kids was on medication because she couldn't get in a lift. And both Jen and I were like, fucking hell, what? Just take the stairs. Like, up comes all our judgment. But it was like, it was beautiful what you said after that. You just said, I've just realised suffering is suffering.
Yeah. Oh, I've got, like, you get a face full of your own ego. I think, I can't remember who it is that says that. It said that to me, said, you'll get a face full of your own ego. But it's cool because I remember Keith saying to me, he feels like Sydney Banks spent his whole life sort of, he'd give a talk and then people would say, is it this? And he'd be like, no, it's not that. It's not. He said that he spent more time telling people what it wasn't because you can't talk about what it is. And it's almost like you're starting to go, oh my God, that's the same. That's thought. Oh my God, that, like you've just suddenly, like I saw your face just go, oh my God. And suddenly things start to crumble because you see it's all thought. Like it's all thought and it comes in all these different disguises. It's like, I'm not thought, I'm true. And it's like, no, that's still thought. and you get eyes for that, and I think you get a bit more humor and kind of gratitude naturally starts to come, not because we're necessarily privileged, but you're grateful for being here and being alive and having an experience, because you see that is a miracle.
You see the miracle of life. Most people do not live in the miracle of life or have any awareness or have seen that life is a miracle, a magical dance. You know, and people are so afraid of dying and then they're afraid of life. You know, and it's like, it's a ridiculous notion. Why are we all afraid of life? Why are we all afraid of death? Why are we afraid of everything? We're afraid of the creations that we generate within our own mind. Afraid of images that we generate, and then we scare the shit out of ourselves about it. This is very much done in the future. When people imagine the future, they hear something about the future, they'll generate an image of what that appears to them like, and then they will relive that time and time again, and they'll think they're afraid of the future. What they're afraid of is an image they generated within their own mind about something that they once heard. That's what people are afraid of. That's what we do. But if we can't see the trick, we will just live in that wholeheartedly, like embody that experience. Doesn't sound to me like you're embodying all those experiences so much anymore. It feels like there's a part of you that separates itself from the experience and just observes the experience. That's absolutely in the direction of what we're talking about. That's a step in the direction, few steps, fuck knows how many steps, because it's infinite. What depth is it? I don't know. How deep do I say? I don't know. How can you measure infinity? You know, it's like people say, I have a small insight today. Did you? Remember one lady on your course, she came and she had a bit of a small insight. I went for a meal on my own for the first time and I felt comfortable. It's like, you think that's a small insight? Times that over a lifetime of feeling comfortable in your own presence, in your own skin, without the need for other people around you. Now tell me that's a small insight. You freed yourself up from an aspect of your ego that was seriously hindering you. There's no such thing as a small insight. You can't measure big or small in infinity. They're all relevant. And you know when you get an insight because the reality changes in front of you, in front of your being. You see different, you feel different. Doesn't mean the world's physically changed, although sometimes the world physically changes in front of our eyes as well. This mind is more powerful than anything we are yet en masse fully aware of. We will wake up to it more and more through future generations of people studying the mind. They will start to discover that the mind is far more powerful. They'll look back at us and go, primitive people, primitive people. And do you know what those primitive people believed? They believed in primitive people because there's no such thing as a primitive person. Because the people that are going to be here in future generations, they are ourselves. And they won't be any more special than what we are now, because it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. Let's call it a night. Hides.
Thank you.
Your last poem you sent us, love, was beautiful. It's like spoken word.
Your poems always end up in our LCN, which is our hosting company's junk folder. So every 3 or 4 days I go into LCN and I check our spam and see if we've got anything that's important.
It's beautiful. Jenny read it to me. I'm loving them, love. Keep them coming.
Thank you. I will.
Right, everyone. Go and have a lovely night.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you. Night night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Bye. Night.
Bye.